Hi, I'm Kate Sellers of Charles J. Sellers Insurance. This is a short webinar about protecting your healthcare business with cyber insurance. Just a quick word about Sellers Insurance. We specialize in insurance for physicians and their practices. We're endorsed by the Medical Society of the State of New York and many other county and district medical societies for insurance for member physicians. We've served Erie County Medical Society members since 1941. On today's agenda is a brief overview of cyber insurance, the various coverages that are available, how to go about obtaining and evaluating a cyber insurance proposal, and then a review of some real-life claims examples that our customers have had on their cyber insurance policies. I'm sure it's not news to anyone that cyber risks are on the rise, especially over the last 2 years. This is very true of ransomware attacks. They're the leading cause of cyber-related issues. About 75% of cyber insurance claims stem from ransomware attacks. We've seen that cyber criminals are seeking higher ransom payments, in some cases threatening to release private data if ransoms aren't paid. And of course, ransomware can lead to downtime because your systems are locked by the criminal until you pay the ransom or are able to restore on your own. So this leads to obviously a huge loss of productivity and revenue. And it's important to know that about 70% of ransomware attacks are aimed at organizations with fewer than 1,000 employees. You know, we all see in the news stories of ransomware attacks on huge hospital systems and other big businesses, but small and medium-sized businesses are absolutely targets for ransomware attacks too. And there are other types of cybercrime to be concerned about in addition to ransomware attack. A lot of this, the increase in this type of crime is stemming from the pandemic, with more remote work, things like telehealth on the rise. These are more opportunities for cyber criminals to create problems for you. And of course, the healthcare industry is a target for cyber criminals in light of all of the personal health information and financial information you have about your patients. It certainly makes healthcare businesses an attractive target. You know, we like to think of cyber insurance as one piece of the overall cyber risk puzzle. Obviously, it's super important to lock down your systems the best you can, put the best cybersecurity practices in place. But no matter what you do, there can be a cyber criminal who's a step ahead of you. So it really is important to transfer some of the risk you have, this big financial risk, to an insurance company and take a belt and suspenders approach. Put your best proactive practices in place and then also have cyber insurance in case those best practices fail you. I include this slide because I think it's really important to note the human factor that's involved in breaches in the healthcare industry. This chart from Chubb shows, it's the red line there is the healthcare industry, and 36% of the breaches are related to human error. You know, we hear from a lot of our customers, I'm not sure if I need cyber insurance. My EMR vendor is taking care of all that security, and I have IT people who are putting security in place. And those are all good things, but you can't eliminate the possibility or even the likelihood of human error. And that's how a lot of breaches take place. You know, somebody clicking on the wrong thing or disclosing the wrong information to the wrong person. So it's important to have cyber insurance because you really can't ever say you've completely eliminated the risk of human error. So cyber insurance has evolved to help businesses deal with these cyber risks. The policies bundle together a number of different coverages, and there are two main types of coverage in cyber insurance policies: first-party and third-party coverages. First-party coverages are for direct damages to your business that you need to recover for. And then third-party coverages are liability coverages. That's for losses to others who claim that you or your business are responsible for those losses. And those are the two main types that are packaged together in cyber insurance policies. The first-party coverages in most cyber insurance policies will include breach response and remediation expense. These are some of the upfront costs you may experience if you have a cyber event, and they would certainly include things like paying to consult with a specialist attorney, an attorney who specializes in cyber and privacy issues, and then consulting with IT forensic experts to find out, what happened here. Was our information breached? What happened to the information, so that you can plan your response accordingly? And those services are in demand, so they are expensive. You may also have costs associated with notifying patients and providing them credit monitoring, which can be required of you in some instances. Another very important first-party coverage is business interruption. This is like the loss of business income coverage on your property insurance. It helps you recover from your lost revenue if you can't operate your business due to a cyber event. And we've seen our customers, this has been one of the main cost components of their claims in a ransomware attack, for example, where you can't see patients for 3 or 4 or 5 days until your systems are restored. Obviously, there's a big loss of revenue there that can really have just a horrible financial impact on your business if it's not insured. There's also coverage in the first-party coverages in most cases for system damage and data restoration in case in the course of a cyber event, your data, which is very valuable to your business, of course, becomes inaccessible or damaged. There's also, importantly, as we've been discussing, coverage for ransomware attacks. And that can include coverage for ransom payments. A lot of people wonder if that's covered, and in most policies it is. And that's important because a recent Forbes article reported that 87% of organizations that report a ransomware attack do actually pay the ransom. There also can be coverage for other types of cybercrime and other breaches among the first-party coverages. So there really is a lot of coverage packaged into these policies. The third-party coverage, again, these are coverages for losses that somebody else incurs and claims that you are liable for, including your defense costs, which can be a huge component. So those would include claims like security liability claims, which would be claims others make saying that they were damaged due to a breach of your systems. So for example, if your system spreads malware to another entity's computer systems, or if your system is hijacked and used for a denial of service attack, or if there's an identity theft issue and somebody has a lot of damages due to that because of a breach of your system. Those are the types of third-party claims that can be covered. Very importantly for healthcare businesses, of course, the privacy liability aspect of coverage. That would be if somebody claims that their personal identifiable information or protected health information has been disclosed or compromised and they're damaged by that and they sue you for that. That's a liability that would be picked up by these third-party coverages. There's also coverage for regulatory investigations. This is probably something of a nightmare scenario, but if you had a breach and you're already dealing with that, you can end up with a regulatory investigation of the breach on top of it. And one of the really important things here is there would be defense cost coverage. That would be for the attorneys you would want to hire to represent you and advise you in that regulatory investigation. There are also third-party coverages that would fall under the category of media liability. So if your business publishes something like a website and you're claimed to have defamed someone or invaded their privacy or infringed on someone's trademark, those types of claims are covered under these media liability coverages that can be included in some cyber insurance policies. There can also be coverage for the payment card industry data security standards assessments that you could run into if the breach includes disclosure of payment card data. Also, if you've assumed liability under a contract for another party's systems and you have breach response costs there, that can also be covered under third-party coverages. So in addition to all of these insurance coverages, cyber insurance policies can also provide you with services that can help you prevent a breach from occurring in the first place, which is a really terrific benefit of these policies. For example, some cyber insurance carriers will send out alerts to their policyholders. We've enrolled in that with our cyber insurance carrier that we have the cyber insurance for our agency with. And I'm one of the people who gets those alerts and we act upon them. If there's a threat out there or a known vulnerability, we check our systems for that. And I find those cybersecurity alerts very helpful. There are also carriers who will provide educational resources for your staff, which is really important to get your people trained. There can be, recorded modules online for training of your staff, which are very helpful. Another really helpful part of this process is that many carriers will do an external scan of your system, and they can see vulnerabilities that, a bad actor on the outside could also see. And then give you recommendations to improve your security. Some will do this when you have the coverage with them. Some will do it, many of the carriers are now doing this when you apply for coverage. And sometimes we'll make an offer of coverage contingent on acting on their recommendations, which is really very helpful to make sure, you have any vulnerabilities addressed from the outset, and then put the cyber insurance in place on top of that. The cyber carriers also can provide discounts for vendors who do things like test your systems, do phishing tests, see how your employees react. And so those discounts for policyholders can also be a nice benefit of the policies. So we've talked about the risks and the coverages provided. And so now how do you actually go about getting cyber insurance? Cyber insurance can sometimes be packaged into another policy as an endorsement, most commonly on a business owner's policy, although we've seen it, some cyber insurance thrown into other types of policies as well. In most cases, we really recommend a standalone cyber insurance policy that will provide broader coverage, higher limits. It's really what most businesses need today. Your agent or broker will have you complete an application, which will ask you questions about the size of your business, like how many employees you have, what your annual revenues are, and definitely ask you questions about your cybersecurity practices, what you're doing to try to prevent a cyber issue in the first place. And there are a lot of companies on the market who are offering very good policies. However, within the last few years, we are seeing what in the insurance world is called a hard market. And that means that the premiums are going up and some of the terms are less generous. And that's due to the number of claims and how severe the claims have been. So we are seeing that. We are definitely seeing the insurance carriers asking much more detailed questions about your security practices than they were in the past. But really, this is all, it is true that the premiums are increasing. Some of the terms might be a little less generous, but it's all because the need for coverage has never been greater. So we certainly encourage any business that doesn't have a cyber insurance policy yet to get one, or at least get a proposal to consider and look at the premium. Once you obtain a proposal, these are some of the key items to look at. because you need to keep in mind that there can be variations between the offerings from different carriers and from one proposal to another. First, obviously, you want to look at the coverages that are offered and the limits of coverage and consider how much coverage you need. A $1 million policy limit is pretty standard for a lot of smaller businesses. Sometimes lower limits are available from some carriers, and a medium or larger business should consider higher limits. Of course, you're going to also look at the premium. No one ever has to be reminded to look at the premium and the deductibles that are on the proposal so that you can balance the amount of risk you're keeping with the risk that you're transferring to the insurance company. Another important thing to look at is the retroactivity provision that's applicable to the liability coverages. That will tell you how far back your coverage can go. If you can get full prior acts coverage, that's what you're looking for. It means that a claim that is otherwise covered under the terms of the policy will be covered if the claim is made against you while the policy is in force, even if it stems from events that occurred prior to the policy being put into place. So full prior acts coverage, if you can get a proposal for that type of retroactivity provision, is the best that you can hope for. And then, of course, every policy has exclusions. Every insurance policy does. They're important to review, certainly, and they can vary between insurance carriers, and they're important to review and understand what's covered and what isn't. I will say that while there are, of course, some exclusions, our experience so far with these policies has been that most of the claims we have seen from our customers have been covered, because I know that's often a concern that customers have. But by and large, this coverage is quite broad, and that while there are some items excluded, there are many claims that will be covered. We've been selling cyber insurance here at our agency for maybe the last 10 years or so, and we have had customers experience claims on those cyber insurance policies, especially within the last 5 years. And two types of claims that we've seen just as examples of things that can be covered. The first category would be ransomware attacks. We've had, this has been the most common type of claim we've seen from our customers who've gone into their offices in the morning and the first person to turn on a computer, gets the message that the systems are locked and that a key will be provided only upon the payment of a ransom. So, in those circumstances, the size of the claim has varied based on different factors, but one of the biggest factors is how good your backup is and how easily you can restore from your backup. So we've seen a lot of those claims covered, and it's certainly one of the most important reasons to have cyber insurance so that you have resources available to respond to a ransomware attack. Another claim we've seen had to do with a different type of cyber fraud. This was for a larger medical group where someone in the human resources department received a fraudulent email from a criminal pretending to be one of the partners or owners of the group and redirecting their draw to a fraudulent account. And unfortunately, the person in the HR department was busy and did make that change to the bank account information, and payments were made into this fraudulent account for several months before the crime was discovered, and it was a pretty big loss. That claim was also covered under a cyber insurance policy in excess of the deductible, and it was a pretty good sized claim. So things like that are happening here in New York State to medical practices, and it's a very those are good examples of why you need to have cyber insurance if you don't have it yet. I also like to point out that especially in the cyber insurance world, claims need to be reported very quickly. to your insurance carrier before you incur any expenses or really do anything. The policies all come with hotline numbers that you should keep in an easily accessible place somewhere in addition to on your computer systems in case you can't open your computer system to get to it. And, if something like that happens, you can, of course, also always call your insurance agent or broker for assistance. So if you have any questions about the information in this webinar, or if you'd like a cyber insurance proposal for your business, please contact us at Sellers Insurance. We'll do our very best to assist you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar.